Always say no. I think many people have seen the movie with Jim Carrey where it was said that you should always say yes. But honestly, not everything works that way. If you think about the movie, it had a very interesting and simple logic. In order to live a happy life, you need to understand what you actually need in this life. Be open to the world, be open to new adventures, try different things, and so on. Overall, this makes sense. But today, I want to talk about something else. The thing is, I grew up as a pretty good boy, a boy who did everything the right way, who tried not to let his family down, who tried not to mess up, who tried to study well, and so on. In general, there's nothing wrong with that. It seems like upbringing, right? However, for me, this very good boy attitude often led to unpleasant consequences. It often led to situations where I couldn't say no to someone simply because I was afraid of being seen as bad or misunderstood. In one of my videos, I reflected on what people might say. And I think all this growing up with the need for approval is very closely tied to the importance of others' evaluations. It's about the importance of having good grades in school, the importance of people on the street, even strangers, saying good things about you, so that everyone can be proud of you, so that everyone knows how great, wonderful, and special you are. After all, if you do something well and get praise for it, it must mean you're the best person in the world. Then you live with this mindset. You live with the belief that you need good grades, good relationships with people, not to argue with anyone, not to stick your neck out, and to generally be the type of person who should get a positive evaluation from everyone you respect or care about, even a little bit. This leads to a number of good positive occurrences: rewards, recognitions, successes in work, studies, and so on. But it also leads to many situations where you forget one very important thing in your life: personal boundaries. Personal boundaries, it seems to me lately, are a bit tarnished, especially in modern psychology. The whole idea of personal boundaries has gone a bit absurd. You know, like those memes where it says, if you aren't hurt by your childhood traumas, if you can make tea, please do so. It's absurd, of course. But this absurdity is based on a fairly sensible idea, that in every situation in the world, you should remember one important person: yourself. If you think about what personal boundaries are, it's basically a set of rules, feelings, and circumstances in which you feel good. But when you grow up as a good boy, comfort becomes unfamiliar. You feel like if you feel comfortable, it must mean you've earned it. And that's a trap you can easily fall into. Because then throughout your life, in work, in school, in your career, in your personal life, you think you have to face problems. In short, because you want to be this good boy, you forget how to say no. Because if you say no, you'll likely disappoint someone. If you say no, you'll probably fail to meet someone's expectations. And this feels scarier to you than your own discomfort, failure, or the feeling that you're not in the right place doing the right things. So, you agree. You agree to study things in school that you don't need at all, to sign up for all kinds of events, to attend every meeting, to represent your school in every competition, to help someone with homework because they can't do it themselves, and so on. You agree to be around people who don't really deserve to be in your circle, to do what your family wants, even if it doesn't resonate with you internally. In this way, you erase or don't even establish personal boundaries, and you start living like this from a young age. It's actually quite a scary story, because then as you grow older, you go to university, you have your first relationships, and you start meeting the expectations of others. I talk about this a lot, and you don't understand why. Why do you feel like you lack the strength to do what you want? Why do you always feel dissatisfied with your life? Hello everyone, welcome to your Bro channel. Today we'll talk about how to say no without feeling guilty. Why does it always feel like something is weighing on you? Why does everything seem so unfair? The thing is, in most cases, the answer lies in personal boundaries. The amount of energy you accumulate isn't infinite, and you can't keep spending all your resources on everyone else, putting yourself last. If you want to achieve anything at all, I'm not talking about apparent success, but about your inner sense of satisfaction with life. You have to learn to say no. You need to learn to set personal boundaries. Saying no will be necessary, because otherwise, you simply won't have enough time. To try to frame this problem, due to different circumstances, whether upbringing, life events, or simply character or fate, at some point, you realize that you're spending a lot of energy not on yourself. Because of this, you don't feel satisfaction from your ambitions or their fulfillment, and you try to overcompensate. This is about a separate vessel, but in a situation where you're the good boy or good girl and you want to please everyone, you just can't do that. So you try to fill it from the outside. If you imagine that this is the vessel of water I'm talking about, instead of opening the cap and pouring in self-sufficiency, healthy self-esteem, self-love, attention to yourself, to your inner thoughts, figuring out who you are and what you're about, you seal it tight and try to do this instead. The thing is, no matter how much you try to fill it, it won't be filled. Being wet doesn't mean being full. And that's how you live, gradually losing your inner resources. This continues for years, and it actually leads to quite scary consequences. Because from the inside, you just dry up, but all you can do, all you're capable of, is trying to replenish it from the outside. But it doesn't work that way. And it's only when you realize that you can't make yourself happy doing this that you begin to understand. If you're worried about other people, you won't make them happy either. Because at some point, you'll run out of resources and won't have anything left to give them. And the thing is, fighting this means that you have to say no at some point. You have to refuse to help someone, not lend money, not listen to someone, not help someone move on your day off, not go to work on your day off, not agree to go somewhere you don't want to go, and not associate with people who make you uncomfortable. You'll have to do this. It's incredibly hard because, as a rule, society as a whole and individuals in particular positively reinforce the status of all self-sacrificing heroes and mercilessly pressure successful, happy, self-sufficient people. This is because it's easier that way. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just because it's more convenient. The people who pressure you, who expect something from you, are usually in situations where they can't accept that they too need to work on their own self-sufficiency. It's like I've done something really cool, something really fast, and something really awesome, but I'm still constantly pushed to the side. Most of us are in a state where we either judge others because we're too scared to do the same, or we give in to this judgment because, in that case, nothing changes. So, yeah, saying no is incredibly difficult. It's incredibly, insanely hard because the first thing you think is that everyone will turn away from you. If you're a bad person, no one will want to be around you. But here's the little problem. Refusing to do something you don't want to do does not mean you're a bad person. The second thing we're all taught is that honesty is good. Refusing to agree where you don't want to is being honest with yourself, at the very least, and maybe even with others, depending on the situation. So at some point, I thought that if, when someone asks you for help, you ask yourself whether you have the resources for it, then refusing someone when you don't have enough resources is actually showing care for yourself. You're showing care for those who are important to you. You know that situation when your mom asks what you want for a gift, and you tell her, "Please give me the gift of going to the doctor and taking care of your health." You're not saying this because you want to be the nice one. You're saying it because it really matters to you. You want your loved ones to be able to take care of themselves, and that's just as important. Some people realize this and say it, while others don't. For some, it's an abstract concept, but it's important for everyone who is capable of even a little self-love. Saying no, refusing, or turning down something you can't handle, that's about self-care. Believe me, nothing bad will happen if you say no. Adults are adults. You don't need to think of yourself as a god who has to save everyone. That savior complex is a whole different story. Nothing bad will happen, but you might feel, damn, my no might come off as rude. And yes, that's true. Rudeness isn't worth it. I think that the idea of refusal doesn't equal rudeness, because rudeness is a form, and with form, you need to work. So first we need to understand if we actually want to say yes, because we want it ourselves. If we really want to, we need to assess whether we have the resources for it or if we can do something to make those resources available. If not, we either refuse or do what we can to create those resources. Maybe we ask to move it to another time, for example. So if someone invites you to a meeting, instead of just saying no, you say, "Listen, I really can't right now. I'd love to, but how about we meet in a week when I can? Or let's leave it open-ended, and I'll get in touch to fit it into my schedule when I'm available." That's an honest conversation with the person, and I think most people will actually respond well to that. Second, if we understand that we don't want to engage in something, but we're afraid to refuse because the person might get upset or dissatisfied, and we want to avoid negativity, we look for a way to refuse in a form that makes us comfortable. If it's a close person, you can work on this form. You can practice saying no with them, because if the relationship is important, you need to work on it. You need to find a comfortable way to interact with each other in critical situations, and lack of strength, absolute apathy, or burnout is a critical situation. Or, if none of these intermediate forms resonate with you, you can always say no. There are practices where you can say yes to everything in order to shake up your life and get out of a rut. At other times, you can do the opposite and say no to everything to focus on your inner sense, your internal desires. Because if you stay at home for a while, with no tasks, maybe even without work, without anything at all, you will quickly begin to understand what desires are truly yours. You'll be able to focus on yourself, and perhaps in such a case, you should sacrifice some immediate positive emotions in order to gain those same emotions in the long term, in much larger volumes. The thing is, always say no, or learn to say no without feeling guilty. That's about your relationship with yourself. It's about how you can feel for yourself. It's about how you don't just go through life on autopilot, but consciously make stops where you need to refuel. And that's an incredibly cool thing, because at some point, when you free up time to think, you begin to confront some very interesting questions. For example, how do I fill this void inside me? What exactly fills me inside? And here, most likely, you come to a strong sense of devaluation. You try to fill this void with your achievements, but you compare them with some other ephemeral, inflated online persona of someone who is 1,000,000 times more successful than you, and so on. And you realize, no, I can't fill myself with that because it's not good enough, and you face perfectionism. You stand there with a huge list of your accomplishments, but can't bring yourself to fill that void because it all feels insufficient. So instead, you go outside and try to fill it externally, because that way you'll at least feel a little bit satisfied with the praise. But trying to take small steps towards self-care, that's a completely different challenge. It's such a separate issue that you can approach it almost mathematically. You can set aside time to really understand what makes you, well, you. The you who doesn't feel an emptiness inside, doesn't feel pain or grinding inside. I really understood this recently with clothes. I realized that for a long time, spending money on myself was a problem. Now, I may seem like a shopaholic to some people. It's kind of funny because I recorded an unboxing of these t-shirts I'm wearing now, which I might include at the end. I might look like a person with a ton of clothes, shoes, and all the accessories, but for me, this is actually a huge step, a step toward feeling something inside myself, taking care of myself, filling myself not with things, but with self-care. Because for a long time, I couldn't spend a penny on myself. I used to wear torn clothes, which, kind of held me back. Moreover, I even used to walk around in light clothes in the winter because buying something warm felt absurd. Why do I need this for next year? I work in an office. What do I need a jacket for? I kept wearing my old, worn-out stuff. But at some point, when I started thinking about my small accomplishments, about what's really important and valuable to me, I realized that having a wardrobe filled with the things I truly need in life is really important. Now I can get dressed, put on something I like, record a video, and not stress about it without wasting tons of time and energy on unnecessary things. And you don't always need to devalue it, as I've mentioned before. You don't always need to justify why you deserve something. Sometimes you deserve it just because you're you. Sometimes you were just lucky, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe your actions brought that luck. But at the end of the day, luck happens because you were open to it. Something may seem fair or unfair, but that's another conversation. Objectively speaking, looking at yourself, your life, and your successes, it's crucial to let go of what doesn't take you closer to your true self. It doesn't matter how you do it, but doing it is incredibly valuable. Learning to say no without the fear of judgment is like a cheat code for life, as they say. Seriously, there's nothing wrong with agreeing to something, with helping someone, with doing extra work or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that at all. The important part is that you understand why you're agreeing to it. Are you saying yes because you're afraid of judgment? Because if you're afraid of judgment, then you're trapped by your own fears. And not just your own, but other people's expectations as well. And living in that is unbearable. It's not your life. That's why I think I'll just eat the food I've cooked for myself in my free time, wearing the t-shirt that fills me with calmness, love, and the feeling of, wow, I feel so comfortable, so good, and so on. I'll watch something that doesn't have to be useful to anyone, including myself. I'll just spend a pleasant evening with myself, taking care of myself, loving myself. And if someone texts me now asking me to do something that would pull me out of this state, that would drain me even more when I'm already exhausted, I'll just say no. Look at this little bit of clothing, this bag. Yes, this is something I actually need. It's essential. It's the foundation everyone should have, you know? I'm sharing this update with you. Let's go. And the t-shirt is nice. I just love the smell of it. Not all brands smell good. Why buy brands that don't smell good? Just say it. Oh, they brought me a little bit of indulgence. Yeah, it's really nice. I'm seriously into this. This sweater, this ragged one, I think I'll wear it when I travel. Well, I don't know. I like it.